Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. We meet an unusual character in this week's Torah portion, Chayei Sarah, someone who makes operative two dicta of our rabbis. Our rabbis teach us in Pirkei Avos, Ezehu Chacham Halome Mikol Adam, who is a wise person, one who learns from everyone. Everyone has something to teach us. We can learn from everyone, even if they're not such a sterling person. There are still things that we can learn from them. And our rabbis teach us in the Talmud, Masechta Brachos, Alti birchas hediot kala beinecha. If a hediot, a mediocre person, not such a great person, gives you a blessing, it's not nothing. Don't dismiss it. Take a blessing from whoever you can get it, even if it's not such a great person. So I'm referring to Lavan, Rivkah's brother, who facilitates her marriage in this week's Torah portion to Yitzchak. Later, we will learn more about him because he becomes the father of Rachel and Leah, who Yaakov marries. And in each of these narratives, Lavan is unsavory. He's a sleazy character. He's dishonest. And improbably, we learn a great deal from him that is even today normative Jewish practice centered around weddings. For example, in this week's Torah portion, when Rivkah agrees to go with the servant of Avram Eliezer back to Israel to marry Yitzchak, the Torah says, Vayvarchu es Rivkah, and Lavan blessed his sister Rivkah. And our sages derive from this is in the Talmud, Masechta Kala, Kala bli bracha asura labala. If there is a wedding and blessings have not been given, then the husband and wife are not permitted to each other. Meaning, an essential component of a marriage ceremony is that there should be blessings that are given to the bride, to the groom, to both of them together. Now, of course, later, this idea is written into the text of the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings that we give to the couple under the chuppah, but the origin is based on this idea that Lavan gave a blessing, a bracha, to Rivkah as she was about to get married. Very interesting source for this practice that we all have. Sheva Brachot, 7 blessings. Next, the Torah says, in the Torah a little bit later, when we come to the narratives where Lavan has 2 daughters, Rivkah, Rachel and Leah, and you remember the story, we're going to talk about it in a couple of weeks, where Yaakov wants to marry Rachel. It turns out that Lavan tricks him, and he ends up marrying Leah, and then he marries Rachel. But at that first wedding, Yaakov thought he was marrying Rachel, but it turned out that he was actually marrying Leah. At that first wedding, the Torah says that about Lavan, Vayas Mishteh. Lavan made a festive meal to celebrate the wedding. And that is actually the source of the requirement that a wedding, a Jewish wedding, should have a celebration meal. That's part of the mitzvah of marriage. It is possible to get married without having a su'uda, a festive meal following it. The marriage would still be valid, but it is a mitzvah. It is a requirement. It's an essential component of a wedding ceremony that there be a celebration that is shared with other people. And that comes from Lavan. And finally, remember, Yaakov thinks he's marrying Rachel. In fact, it's Leah. When he finds out that it's Leah, he confronts his father-in-law Lavan. And Lavan says, Malei shavuazos, finish out this week and then you can marry Rachel, and you'll have to work for another number of years in order to be able to marry Rachel. But when he says Male Shavuazos, finish this week, later that becomes the hint in the Torah to the legislation of our rabbis that when a bride and groom marry, and they're both getting married for the first time, that they have 7 days of celebration, 7 days that they should not go to work, that they are freed from all other obligations in order to celebrate their marriage. I hope to speak more about this piece of legislation with God's help on Thursday night. But the source of 7 days of celebrating a wedding comes from Lavan. All these lessons that are a normal part of our wedding ceremonies, Jewish wedding ceremonies, have their origin with the actions of Lavan. And what that teaches us is, again, this lesson, Ezehu Chacham, Halomim Mikol Adam. We can learn something from everybody, even though Lavan had plenty of faults. At the Pesach Seder, we say, Lavan bikesh lakres hakol. Lavan was an enemy of Yaakov and his family and the Jewish people. He wanted to uproot the entire Jewish people before we even began. Certainly not a good person. And yet, Lavan, for all his faults, understood an essential aspect of marriage, that it is a major milestone in life, not something to be entered into lightly, that it must be celebrated, and that it's appropriate to bless God for this great milestone. All of this we learn from Lavan. Al tihi birchos hedyot kala be'einecha. Don't allow the blessing bestowed by even a mediocre person to be light in your mind, in your eyes. Don't dismiss a blessing even from an unsavory character. As I mentioned before, Lavan gives a bracha to Rivkah before she goes off to be married to Yitzchak. And the bracha that he gives, Achosenu, our sister, Athiyila alfe revava. You should be, your descendants should be mighty and powerful and successful. It's a beautiful bracha. And in fact, many people have the custom, even today, to bestow this blessing on a kala, on a bride, just before she walks down the aisle to the chuppah. It is my practice at every wedding that I perform to bestow this bracha on every kala, every bride at which I officiate. Again, a bracha that comes from Lavan. But just because it comes from Lavan, don't dismiss it. And it's become a custom among a large part of the Jewish people. I don't think everyone does it, but it's certainly well known. But there is something curious about the wording of this blessing, this bracha, which again, we still bestow this bracha even today, 4,000 years later. But first, I want to share with you a little bit of personal background. When I became a rabbi many years ago, it was novel in the sense that I was the first person to become a rabbi in my entire extended family. There were no other rabbis in my family at that time. No ancestors that were rabbis. As far back as anyone knew about our family, no rabbis. I was the first. My father, of blessed memory, was a lawyer. My grandfather, of blessed memory, was a lawyer and a law professor and the dean of a law school. My uncle, of blessed memory, was a lawyer and a law professor and a judge. Before that, going back, as far as we know, we were peddlers. And that is until my younger brother Daniel, who lives in Lakewood, New Jersey, started doing genealogical research into our family history. And my brother found an ancestor of ours of some note, Rabbi Yosef of Slutzk. Slutzk was an important Jewish community in Lithuania. He was known as the Slutzker Rav, the Rabbi of Slutzk. Now, this Rabbi Yosef was the primary student of Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, who was a great and well-known scholar who himself was the primary student of the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna. So this Rabbi Yosef of Slutzk was a very important Torah scholar. He was a very important Torah scholar, and he wrote many volumes of Torah commentary. We only have a few that exist today, so he's not as well known as he would be if had his works been published. There's a fascinating story that is very meaningful to me. The story is told that during his lifetime, he saved up his money to put in a separate account, so to speak, in order to publish his works. And he had many works, and it would have brought him a lot of fame. People would have studied his works because he was a great scholar. But his financial position changed towards the end of his life. And so in his will, he directed that the entire considerable sum which he had saved up to be used to publish his works, instead should be used to provide for his wife and his family after he passed away. And because of that very altruistic wish, we do not have many works of his that were published. We have a few volumes. There's one volume, I have a copy, which is a commentary on the Torah. And so I want to share with you an insight of my ancestor, the Slutzker Rav, on this bracha. So the Torah says as follows, this week's Torah portion. Lavan has just arranged that his sister Rivkah has agreed to go with Eliezer to marry Yitzchak. Vayivarchu es Rivkah, and they bless Rivkah. Vayomru la, and they say to her, Achoseinu, our sister, Adhiyi la'alfei ravava, your descendants should be numerous and mighty and successful. Beautiful bracha. But the Slutzker Rav asks, there is a doubling of the language that doesn't seem to be appropriate. Vayvarchu, and they blessed. Vayomru, and they said. Why does the verse say they blessed and they said? It should just use one. Either say they blessed Rivkah with those words, or say they said to Rivkah these words. Why vayvarchu es Rivkah vayomru? So he says something very interesting. He says when a parent marries off a child, the child gets married, the parent says to the child that you should be good. I bless you. You should be good. You should be happy. You should be successful. And that includes, of course, saying you should find favor in the eyes of your bride or groom and their family, your in-laws. You should be successful. The Slutzker Rav says that statement actually has two meanings. On the one hand, it is a bracha, it's a blessing. I bless you, my child, that you should be successful and find favor with your new family, and everything should go well with you. I bless you that Hashem should give you this blessing. So vayivarchu, they gave a bracha. But with the same words, they were also making a statement. They're saying, listen, my child, you're now getting married. You're going to be together with another family in addition to ours. Our families are now going to be joined through this marriage. Be careful to act properly. Be careful to deserve their admiration. Act properly to preserve your reputation and the reputation of our family. A parent never finishes giving lessons to their child, even at the moment that they're getting married. Do the right thing. Be the right person as you enter into this new chapter in your life. And so, the words of the Torah are vayivarchu, vayomru, because the same words that they spoke were both a blessing and also a very important piece of advice. And that is what we say to every young couple, to every kala, to every young couple getting married. Hashem should bless you, and you should be the kind of person that will be deserving of each other and happy with each other. All of this we learn from Lavan. Even a person such as Lavan. Don't dismiss their blessing, and there's plenty to learn from them. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.